what strategy they decide to go for. I honestly want to see early pushes on Raikou or just a grip into Chaz and another all-in attempt like the one we saw on Tolvrun Arena. Could potentially catch Chaz off guard, as he is not playing that
yeah, he's not playing that. And ultimately, we can see very quickly he's not...
Renewal.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
it.
Yeah. Yep,
He got it.
very early on, we saw Drainer actually roll. Now, most Mystery Monks, they opt into Chi Torpedo for their mobility instead of Tiger's Lust, but I think what Drainer's doing is very intelligent, opting into Tiger's Lust as a talent choice, which is going to allow him to help Nerd Rage get out of the various Novas that Raikou will certainly put him in this matchup, giving him a little bit more uptime on his target. I think those Tiger's Lust can really add up in a matchup, so if you're a Mistweaver at home, definitely consider that if you are playing a cleave setup like this and you're struggling against a mage team.
Yeah, most certainly. Drainer is going to have to look for Drink Denial on Chaz, but on this large map, that is really a difficult task to actually accomplish. Raikou getting bursted down, and in this push, they pulled Temporal Shield and the Iron Bark, so for the next one, I would like to see an all-out Maledict aggressive push, get an Ice Block out of the way, set it up again, rinse and repeat, clean and easy. If they can pull that off, the Pumpers may be able to just rely on this Warrior Death Knight composition for the rest of the finals.
Yeah, definitely an option for them. If they can win here, it's going to be huge for the Pumpers. This is the swing match that they need, and we really can't count them out. We've seen them time and time again go up against this setup and really put a lot of pressure on the enemy team, forcing out multiple ice blocks in a matchup. They just sort of trip right on the finish line before they can actually close it out. It's usually the third icy veins of the game that is enough damage for the Frost Mage to really punish these cleavers. When the healing is reduced from Death Strike and Drainer's healing gets reduced, the crowd control changes are really adding up, and Drainer actually eventually has been going out of mana in a lot of these longer games. Cervantes, once again, all over Swapsy, trying to just put some pressure out there. Raikou's been doing a really good job kiting around. You can tell Method Black, they know they need to stall out the game. Raikou not afraid to just spam Polymorph on Nerd Rage. Burst him down when he does finally get away. That also buys Chaz a little bit of time to sneak away and get drinks, which he has done in this matchup. Now sitting at 100% mana, going to be feeling very healthy.
Yep, and if you're just tuning in for the first time today, we are in the grand finals of the European Spring Season Cup number 3. We're currently tied up between the Pumpers and Method Black, but Method Black were able to win the first map, which means they have the swing match advantage, and the Pumpers need to overcome that, which is currently what they're engaged in right now. They have to beat Method Black's Wizard Cleave composition on a very big map. However, in the second match, they picked the largest map and were able to overcome it, and you can't play the same map twice in a series. So if the Pumpers manage to win this, remove 2 of the biggest maps from the pool out of play, that could actually be a way for them to take the entire series is just off of maps alone, because we have seen these Restoration Druids struggling in close quarters. There are more small maps than big maps, and the Pumpers could take advantage of it. Ring of Peace knockback on Swapsy, pinning him in the corner, as it looks like the Pumpers are trying to mix it up and go after a different target. Perhaps Deep and Dampening, they can do an overwhelming 3-man push on the Elemental Shaman. Ice Block immunes you to all damage. Astral Shift does not, even though it is a damage reduction cooldown, it's not a complete immunity. There may be a chance that Method Black get overwhelmed if the Pumpers go after Swapsy that deep into Dampening.
Yeah, this is the debut of the Pumpers this season in these tournaments, and it's really important to them that they get a first place finish. They need all the points that they can get if they want to try to start securing enough to make it to that spring finals, whereas Method Black, they have already won the first 2. If they can somehow win this game, win this series, they're going to be looking like one of the most dominant teams we've ever seen again. So this is a really good year for Method Black. They've seemed to brought all the right compositions, playing out the right strategies, just such a solid team, very impressive, and I feel like the Pumpers definitely have a lot of work ahead of them.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard-fought battle for sure. They're map disadvantaged, comp disadvantaged, everything just disadvantaged here in game number 3. But if they overcome it, I think they take the entire series. So let's see if they can keep it together. They cannot battle against that disadvantage with a half heart. They definitely need to be fully invested in this match. They can't afford to be lazy. They can't afford to be uncoordinated. They can't afford to be demotivated, because even if there is only a 1% chance that they can do it, if they get it, they can get the entire thing. And they are a newcomer in terms of points. This would be definitely a phenomenal performance on their part to get a first place finish. They could overthrow the top 4 qualifying to the spring finals. So for sure, the Pumpers need to play this out. It's going to be a long, fatiguing battle. They can't afford to make any mistakes throughout. We've seen what happens if you make a mistake. Chaz in game 2 erased within seconds of the match starting. So can the Pumpers keep it together and play at a top level throughout this extended series?
Sid, I gotta say, as much as you say the Pumpers are disadvantaged in pretty much every regard, you gotta remember Method Black did get knocked down by them already. We know that this is a team that, regardless of if they're disadvantaged, if they look disadvantaged here, it's a question of, did Method Black figure out something new? Because the Pumpers have already shown that they can do it. I know you're also putting a lot of stress, though, ultimately on the fact that we did see Method pull down the first game in this series, which is going to have a big impact, but there is more potential for a shakeup in a best of 7 than there is in a best of 5. And the Pumpers are one of the only teams that have really been able to step to Method Black.
I mean, we spoke to Swapsy, and Swapsy said at the end of the series, the first time these teams went to head-to-head, is that, well, we had the answer, we just didn't get to pull it off. Chaz had a bit of a technical issue in that series, was a bit of a write-off as a result. So it may be the case that Swapsy was correct in his saying here that they had an answer for the Pumpers overall in the day, and because they won the blind pick, unless the Pumpers can overcome a disadvantage like this in game 3, then they can always just set up the best location and the best composition, and I'm starting to think it may be unlikely. The Pumpers need to coordinate together. So far this match, I have not seen much in terms of coordination. Perhaps they're just saving their efforts, for saving their gas for later in the fight when dampening is higher, and then just try and pump it all out at that point. I'm not sure, but it's not looking good unless they can get it together.
Yeah, this particular matchup is looking a lot different than we saw when ABC played against Nerd Rage. Raikou with his Water Elemental as well as Ice Nova, he's going to have a lot more routes for Nerd Rage to deal with, and I think it's going to be becoming increasingly difficult for him to get away. There's a Tiger Thrust coming in from Drainer, but he just gets immediately snared up once again. Now a knockback coming in from Swapsy as Cervantes and Nerd Rage trying to convene on one target. There's one Gladiator's Maledict. Swapsy actually getting lower. He's already used the Astral Shift as well as his Safeguard, just trying to kite back to the safety of Raikou, who's looking for some Polymorph spam. Managing to find one on Drainer, but it's broken, unfortunately. Cervantes still trying to play aggressive with his anti-magic shell. Now, as I was saying, Raikou's build is going to be a lot more difficult for Nerd Rage to maintain the uptime we saw in Dalaran Sewers when he was playing against Alec.
Yep, most certainly is the case. Let's see if Drainer can keep it up. He's doing a great job so far in terms of efficiency, but they need more execution, they need more coordination. Obviously, as I say that, it is really difficult to do. They're sticking to their split DPS strategy on a big map. If they get separated too much, it can be very difficult. But it does seem to be that they want to go after Swapsy, so they may not be looking for that 3 Maledict Ice Block push, 3 Maledict Ice Block push. Instead, 3 Maledicts, kill Swapsy, or we lose. And they might just be able to do it, playing at a disadvantage. Swapsy dips dangerously low, Chaz desperately trying to recover. The one real problem with hitting Swapsy on that Shaman is Ghost Wolf, which he can use to suppress that Chains of Ice snare from the Death Knight, kite away and avoid all damage. So Swapsy needs to be on his toes and use that Ghost Wolf effectively to deny this strategy from the Pumpers.
Yep, that is going to be a very effective counter to the Chains of Ice. Cervantes on that Unholy Death Knight has one of the best snares in the entire game. I think there's only a few as good, so definitely a really powerful tool in order to stay on your target, but luckily for Swapsy, with Ghost Wolf, he can suppress that entirely and make space. That's why often you'll see him go into Ghost Wolf when he's targeted, and he just runs in a straight line, trying to just create as much distance as soon as possible, relying on Raikou to make sure he's getting those snares on Cervantes and Nerd Rage to buy him a little bit of time and freedom. Now a nice little swap onto Raikou. Nerd Rage reconnects, looking for some pressure. Chaz responds with the Iron Bark, and now the Pumpers, 25% dampening, no Temporal Shield, no Iron Bark, no nothing really for Method Black. They need to start forcing out these ice blocks, and I think they could just get one right now, Sid.
Yeah, this is a coordinated effort on the part of the Pumpers. They're definitely looking clean here in game number 3. 3. Can they take it all the way? If they manage to win on Tolvaron and Ashamain, those are the biggest maps. You can't play them again. It's very important. The Pumpers have an opportunity if they can just stick it out a little bit longer. Being a melee cleave against a Frost Mage is definitely not the best time, but they're doing great so far, and this is the first time that we've really seen Method Black struggle in the tournament setting. Perhaps the Pumpers could be the next rise to power in the European region, securing tons of damage here early on. Crowd control looks good. If they can get a second ice block before their Maledicts, they definitely can close. Cervantes protecting Nerd Rage there as he overextends. However, a big overlap in defensive cooldowns. Mistakes were made there on the side of the Pumpers. They exposed themselves massively now with Enigmatic Zone, Way of the Crane out of the way, Die by the Sword. All 3 members now are limited, and as I said, they were doing great in terms of pressure and coordination. Their defense just got blown out.
Yeah, they used literally pretty much everything they have. Drainer used his Trinket as well in that exchange, so he's very susceptible to a polymorph. Now at 33% dampening. Cervantes could be a good target, but Swapsy under fire. Forced to trade out the Astral Shift. Chaz does have a little bit of mana left in the tank, but Drainer has actually secured a lead, and if the Pumpers can maintain this pressure, swapping between Raikou, swapping between Swapsy, then Chaz is going to have a really difficult time maintaining that mana later on in the fight.
Yep, it's going to be a very rough road for the Pumpers here, trying to battle it out to the bitter end despite the disadvantage. They set themselves up well aggressively, but then completely threw the fight potentially away here defensively. They're still trying to keep up the charge. All 3 members marching. Temporal Shield now out of the way. If they can get an Iron Bark and then make a coordinated play on those Maledicts, they can secure the second ice block, look to reset, and do it again for the kill. Will they be able to stay alive to that point? I feel like they were so close against ABC on Dalaran Sewers, and then Nerd Rage defensively just wasn't responding to the damage in time. So the Pumpers definitely have potential here against Method Black as they look to get the second ice block on this Way of the Crane. Raikou needs to avoid Drainer at all costs, but intimidating shot with no Glaire's Medallion on 3 more seconds. They just need to connect. Nice Mind Freeze. Great coordination aggressively by the Pumpers. Their offense is way better. If they can just squeak up their defense a little bit, they're going to be able to take this.
Yeah, Raikou could be in a lot of trouble. Full Cyclone secured by Chaz onto Drainer. Cervantes and Nerd Rage caught in midfield, and things can snowball out of control quite quickly here for the Pumpers if they stay in the open for too long. But Raikou with no Icy Veins, I think he might struggle to find the pressure that he needs. Nerd Rage still sitting in the anti-magic zone as he charges forward with the Life Cocoon from Drainer. Drainer getting interrupted. Now still successful with crowd control. Nerd Rage getting bursted down lower. Raikou in a lot of trouble as well. Iron Bark, the last line of defense for Chaz to actually keep him alive. Raikou trying to kite away. Beautiful Ring of Peace, knocking Raikou back into Cervantes. Nerd Rage reconnects. And this is trouble time for Raikou. Temporal Shield. He has to hold on a little bit longer. Chaz has no mana in execute range, and the Pumpers managed to do it on the swing match, turning this series in their favor.
You know, in that matchup, Sid, when you were casting, you just said the Pumpers have everything against them.